Okay, so a week ago I set out to become a better writer, but I had this brilliant idea. I'd write and copywork a year's worth of writing from someone I really looked up to, but instead of taking a whole year to do this, I give myself only 7 days. What could go wrong? Come on. I did today a malware, and definitely not loving this part of the process. Come on.
Of course this would happen.
Really hating it. I don't know why I signed myself up for this. When I looked up ways to improve your writing, one exercise popped up everywhere as a recommendation. To become a better writer, you have to copy the great ones. This is known as copywork. This was practiced by many famous authors throughout history and is an exercise still many swear by today. The benefits include learning new writing styles, improving your vocabulary, and best of all, overcoming creative block by forming a habit of writing every day. The format of this exercise looks something like this. Pick a book or author you aspire to write like. Copy a page of their text word for word every day, all with the goal to understand how the author writes and expresses their ideas. For the sake of documenting this and out of my own curiosity, I wanted to see if I could do this daily writing exercise but condense an entire year's worth of work in just 1 week's time. So here's the plan. The author I chose to study was Seth Godin. He's the author of 19 best-selling books. He's a prolific writer who posts to his blog every single day, which has over 7,500 entries. He's been on our show, and I've taken his Alt MBA course. Seth Godin has a way with using few words yet having great impact, something I highly admire and want to emulate in my own writing. My goals for this writing challenge are to copy 365 entries from Seth Godin's blog, apply what I learned by writing 3 of my own articles, which is the average amount of articles I post in a whole year, and see if in the end I've learned how to write like Seth Godin, specifically if I can communicate an idea using less words while having the same impact. So it's 6:52, almost 7 o'clock. This is day 1 of learning how to write better. On the first day I started writing, I went to Seth Godin's blog and I started by copying his top 100 posts. I figured this would be a good place to start since he had hand-selected them. I blocked out my day into 90-minute focus sprints of uninterrupted writing time, followed by 30-minute breaks to decompress. By my calculations, I should be able to finish 13 entries per 90-minute block, totaling 52 in a day and 365 by the end of the week. Okay, so I just finished my very first sprint of writing. It's a lot more work than I was expecting. In fact, my quota is supposed to be to hit 13 and I am currently at 6. So I'm not even at half of my quota, so hopefully there's some shorter ones in this top 100 from Seth. Or I magically get faster at writing, or I'm going to have to work a lot more than I was expecting to. As I went through that first day, I quickly realized how hard it was to maintain that quota. I got bored real fast. Long into a sprint, I would find myself making many spelling mistakes, and I was left feeling a bit cranky and drained by the end of the day. So I just finished my 4th sprint of the day, and I've only gotten 24 blog posts written today. Today, the particular blog posts that I had chosen were way more lengthy than I had thought they would be. I also found that my fatigue starts to kick in and I have a hard time comprehending what it is that I'm reading. You could tell my comprehension is low because I have to reread something a couple of times. Spelling errors everywhere because you could tell my brain is just running out of juice. So I'm going to try and just keep at this, do the same thing tomorrow. Hopefully sleep earlier tonight so I can get some decent sleep. And see if anything is different. If nothing's changed and tomorrow I still end up with similar results, I probably have to make some tweaks. As I went through this process, I documented everything in Notion to keep track of my progress. For each post, I rewrote everything word for word. I took notes on the key takeaways and any patterns I saw in Seth's writing style. I also took meta notes about my personal reactions and emotional state. At the end of each day, I wrote a reflection log, summarizing the 3 things I learned, what I could do better, and my closing thoughts. 3 days into this process, I ran into a few challenges. First of all, I ran into a few technical issues.
Of course, this would happen.
Decent. My fairly new MacBook Pro died on me, and I had to take it in for service. It massively interrupted my process and focus. After my computer fiasco the next day, the city decided to do some jackhammer construction right outside my window. This really affected my ability to focus. So as I'm writing right now, trying to focus and concentrate, my brain is elsewhere, and it's really hard to understand the words that I'm typing and reading, and I'm just having a really hard time focusing. So yeah, I thought I would be in a decent place today, but I'm not. This all put me way behind on my quota. I was only 56 entries midway through, so I tried to move faster and work longer, but I ended up hitting a limit with my retention. By this point, I started to feel like the assignment was no longer serving my goals. I started to doubt my ability to complete the project. I was burning out fast. My only hope was that I would at least see some improvement when this was all over. But I gotta tell you, these first few days really tested my patience and willpower. It felt like I was crawling uphill on a marathon that I wasn't prepared to compete in. So I had to make some tweaks. I've already been making tiny tweaks to my process to make sure that it's working for me. Because I had this big plan, this big idea, and I have to adjust as I go. And I do this with everything. Just because I made a plan and set it in stone doesn't mean that it can't be improved. So some of the things that I did was focus on shorter articles, because those are the ones that I actually enjoy reading. Those are the ones that I get a lot out of. Also, taking more time. I know I have these crazy quotas that I'm supposed to hit every day, but giving myself permission to fall short and give space for me to reflect and comprehend the material and extract more meaning out of it is actually more beneficial to me anyway. So I'm still going to keep looking at that quota as something to aim for, to strive for. I'm using that to push me, to motivate me a little bit, but at the same time, I'm not going to set that high of an expectation that it's going to disappoint me and frustrate me. So for the rest of today, I'm going to focus on trying shorter sprints, because I've also found that that was something that was messing with me. It's making me exhausted. So I'm going to try shorter sprints of 30-minute blocks with 10-minute breaks in between and see how that goes. And I'm just going to keep adjusting and keep reflecting. And I'll do a proper reflection at the end of the day. And that's where we're at. On the last 3 days of this writing challenge, I intentionally slowed my pace. I told myself to forget the daily quota of entries and to focus on retention. This small tweak helped me adjust my relationship with the exercise. It changed from frustration to enjoyment. Taking the pressure off of the numbers helped me get a lot more out of each blog post I rewrote. This helped me to serve my goal better, which was to understand how Seth writes so I can emulate the best qualities into my own work. Then something remarkable happened. The second part of this challenge was to write 3 original articles of my own. Once I changed gears to focus on my own thoughts, it just flowed. It was unlike anything I've felt before as a writer. You see, typically, it takes me a few weeks to get a written article out. I usually spend a lot of time coming up with the draft, refining it, until I feel like it's decent enough to be seen by the public. Much of my work is still in draft mode because I'm either too lazy to finish or too scared to publish it. But this time was different. After doing a sprint of writing, my brain was on fire, full of ideas. My body was already in motion, and because I identified a few writing qualities I wanted to emulate from Seth, I had a set of very clear constraints to work within. This helped me focus on sharing my idea rather than thinking about the form it would take. I created my first article in under 2 hours, and I was happy with it. It was the fastest I've ever written and published something. To be honest, the majority of that time was spent selecting the right cover image. It wasn't even the writing. I'm very happy with what's being presented on the page. I tried to give myself some time limitations, some constraints there, so I just get it done and get it shipped, as Seth Godin would say. Based off of my checklist that I set up in terms of things to emulate from him, I was able to capture a lot of Seth Godin essence in there, while also including my own voice and some things that I've been thinking about and feeling and have just become more clear to me based off of what I've been reading lately and doing these writing exercises. Just very proud of myself because this is the fastest I've ever published something, and I'm happy with the results that I'm seeing in terms of my output, not necessarily measuring the viewership or likes or any of that stuff, just my output. I am happy with this because I'm usually a lot slower at writing these things and publishing them. Now, the results of my 1-week writing challenge. After a week doing this writing assignment, I was able to copy a total of 102 blog posts from Seth Godin. While I'm very short of the original goal of 365 entries, I am not disappointed at all. And that's because I learned so many things during this week. About myself, about Seth Godin's writing style, and how much production I can actually crank out in a short amount of time under constraint. After going through so much of Seth's writing, I recognized a lot of patterns and formulas he uses. Here's a few things I've observed. Seth uses each post to shift your paradigm, taking something you think you know and invites you to look at it from a different perspective. I thought this was a powerful way to engage a reader. Every post by him had this intent in mind. Knowing this helped me focus my own writing to make it purpose-driven. This also improved my ability to be a ruthless editor of my own work and strip down to only the essential words needed to communicate a thought, needed to communicate a change. Seth often used an intriguing title that pulls you in. Once he's hooked you, he often responds to his title in the first line of the post, like a comedian setting up a joke and then delivering the punchline. Seth uses this technique to delight the reader and draw them in closer. Just like a designer uses negative space, Seth uses line breaks to pause, emphasize, and make dramatic shifts in his writing. Something that I became more conscious of when it comes to how I compose my own thoughts on a blank page. These were just 3 of the many things I observed and then applied into my own writing. I'll leave links in the description to the post I wrote using these techniques. The beautiful thing about this challenge is that it forced me to create a system for learning. Rules to follow, a commitment to keep, and a better way to make sense of information and apply it. My process ended up looking something like this. It started with intentional consumption. I read each post with a clear goal in mind, to extract a lesson and make observations about Seth's writing style. Actively seeking information helped me pay attention to what I was reading versus just copying it. This was followed by distilling and reflection. I took notes to summarize what I learned in every post, which forced me to recall the information I had just read. This greatly helped with the retention issues I ran into at the beginning. I also took notes on my thoughts and feelings, which helped me make adjustments to my process. The third step was creation. The most important part of the process was application of what I learned. The moment I started writing my own articles, emulating Seth's style of writing, I committed to memory what I had been copying and observing. That's because I went from passive learning to active learning, the most effective way to retain information. As I moved through this process, I made sure to adjust. When you design a new system to follow, you have to make iterative adjustments to improve its effectiveness. When I noticed that chasing a daily quota of 52 entries became counterproductive towards my goal, I changed my process to focus on the quality of consumption, not the quantity. This adjustment greatly improved my relationship to the exercise and what I got out of it. During this 1-week challenge, I published 3 original articles. That's as much as I normally do in a whole year. And even though the challenge is over, I've experienced a bit of an afterglow effect from it. I still feel the itch to read, to write, and to make. It's like the ink from my pen can't stop flowing, and I have to get something out on paper. Since completing this writing challenge, I wrote 6 more posts in the following week. In other words, my writing productivity is exponentially higher because I developed a habit and have a momentum I'm building on. I'm so happy with the results of this challenge that I'm continuing this exercise with a new author to learn from. I know there's so much I can learn in between the pages of this book. If you want to become a better writer, I highly recommend this exercise. It's an easy and effective way to build momentum and learn. I wrote a companion article of my experience, going into the specific details about my process and what I learned about Seth's writing style. I'll leave links to that article as well as a few other resources in the description below. If you plan to take this challenge on, don't feel obligated to do it all in a week. Take it slow, give it time, and focus on building a habit of practice. Also, make sure to reflect on and apply what you learn. I'd like to leave you with this quote I read from Seth Godin's blog about writer's block, which has encouraged me to write more in public. Writer's block isn't hard to cure. Just write poorly. Continue to write poorly in public until you can write better. Do it every day. Every single day. If you know you have to write something every single day, even a paragraph, you will improve your writing. If you're concerned about quality, of course, then not writing is the problem, because 0 is perfect and without defects. Shipping nothing is safe. Let us know if you enjoyed this video. This is a pilot episode for a series we're thinking about pursuing here at the Futur, where I would challenge myself to learn something new in 1-week sprints. There's a bunch of things I'm personally interested in, but I'm inviting you to brainstorm with me. Leave me a comment below if you have a suggestion for something I should take on. I'm looking to be pushed outside of my comfort zone and develop my skills, but more importantly, I'm hoping I can help you learn in the process with me. I'm Matthew Encina, and I'll see you in the future.